We're all familiar with how difficult Plants vs. Zombies is. It's a game so easy that you can beat it with your eyes closed. So I thought, why not play a version of the game which makes the game more difficult? Well, I've done that already 3 times to be exact. All these hard mode mods claim to have made the hardest version of Plants vs. Zombies, and yet, I've defeated them all, some proving to be more difficult than others. It's time for me to try something even more extreme. It's time for Plants vs. Zombies Total Death Edition. Now to start off with 1-1, yeah, pea shooters now cost 75 sun, but you know what else is different in this mod? The spawn rate. It's 8 times higher than in the original game. If you thought hard mode spawning 4 times more zombies was already ridiculous, this mod makes it twice that. Another big change is that the game slows down all zombies before the first flag, because otherwise, the early game itself would become impossible to beat with 8 times the zombies. To conclude the first level of the game, we're also introduced to the flag zombie in this mod, which spawns 2 gravestones every 4 seconds. They aren't an issue for now, but just wait and see for later levels what happens, because oh boy, they get quite spicy. We unlocked the sunflower for 1-2, and arguably the biggest change here is that each sun is now worth 50 sun instead of 25 like in PvZ2. This accelerates our sun production a ton, since each sunflower will now make back what we paid for it instantly. We easily built up a huge army of pea shooters with all that sun, and with only basic zombies, this was an easy level. Now as we move to 1-3, the Conehead zombie first appears in this level, and they introduce us to the new core game mechanic of zombie variants in this mod. Each zombie has its variant, which is a chance that a zombie will become a veteran version of itself, usually possessing a very powerful ability. Like this guy right here, which I will call the Ender Conehead because its ability is that it has a small chance to teleport 2 tiles forward whenever it gets damaged by anything, like an Enderman. These Ender Coneheads are no joke as they have no limits to how far they can teleport. Sometimes, they can make it all the way to your lawnmowers if you're unlucky. We're also introduced to the game mechanic of gravestone spawning throughout the level. Each grave will add an additional zombie on the final wave, making it that much tougher to defend. But obviously, we have Cherry Bomb to clear everything in one go on this level. You'd think that having more sun would make beating these levels a cakewalk, but this becomes obviously false in 1-4 as we now have to defend 5 lanes. And the game literally sends a zombie on every lane on the first wave of the level. Thankfully, with the help of a walnut stalling out a lane of zombies for us, we can afford pea shooters in time to defend off all the zombies from every lane. And you might have also noticed that walnut now costs 75 sun instead of 50, as they now have fast recharge to keep up with how much faster the zombie spawning is in this mod. It's still just basics and coneheads, so our pea shooters had no problem killing all the zombies, but we will be out of the tutorial stages very soon. From here on out, levels will become much more difficult as more zombies are introduced, and the first problem we face is walnut bowling. Instead of planting sunflowers and whatnot, every -5 level we have to play a minigame, and this level in particular is about bowling walnuts to kill the zombies. Video game logic at its finest, I know, but the problem is that we have the same amount of walnuts as in the original game, but 8 times more zombies to deal with. So we're going to have to be much more efficient with every walnut we use. I try to stall each wave as long as possible for the most walnuts I can get, and I still struggle to keep up with the massive horde of zombies the game sent us. This led to us having to use our first lawnmower, but here's yet another twist the game throws at us.
Bye, have a great time!
Lawnmowers now only mow half the lot instead of its entire lane, making them significantly worse. We still managed to win, but you sure will soon see the problem at the next level. 1-6 adds my favorite plant in the game. Just look at Potato Mine. Who could hate this plant? The makers of this mod apparently, because it now costs us twice as much. Now at this point, you're probably wondering why I even say this mod is difficult. It's been fairly easy so far, and why am I planting sunflowers in the front instead of the back? Well, I'd like to introduce you to the pole vaulting zombies in this mod, which are incredibly fair and balanced. Pole vaulters now jump over 6 columns of plants. Now, that seems bad enough already, but... well, isn't this very fun to deal with? pole vaulting zombies that can jump straight into our defense and smash your plants in a 3x1 area. Potato Mine isn't going to help much here, as its new ability is just to instantly detonate instead of needing to wait to arm. And meanwhile, nearly all our pea shooters have died already, and it is quite literally impossible to block off pole vaulting zombies because they can instantly kill anything that's in their way. The best I can do is pour all my stun to spam every plant to block pole vaulters as long as possible until Cherry Bomb is back from cooldown. And still, we died to a pole vaulter jumping halfway across the lawn and straight into the house. How the hell do we go from teleporting coneheads to pole vaulters that were competing in the Olympics? Never have I witnessed a zombie as strong as this while playing or watching any modded version of the game. And this is just the 4th zombie with like 20 more to go? To make use of all the space we have, I built my defense up to the frontmost column to force pole vaulters to use their jump as early as possible. I also planted a minefield of potato mines in anticipation of the first batch of pole vaulters to give that one extra wave of leeway. Even doing all of this doesn't 100% defend pole vaulters. When they jump forward, they will block any attacking plants from killing the zombies to the back, letting them eat away at our walnuts. And with some of our walnuts dying, this allowed later pole vaulters to jump into our pea shooters, but I managed to survive the onslaught and somehow managed to not lose. We managed to beat 1-6, but it only gets worse in the next level. That's because 1-7 is a direct copy of 1-6 but with one extra flag, meaning we need to survive even more pole vaulters than in 1-6. We were given 5,000 sun, and believe me when I say it, but this isn't even close to enough to survive the upcoming onslaught of pole vaulters we are about to face. I filled up the entire lawn with pea shooters, snow peas, spamming every plant off cooldown to get as much on the board as possible before pole vaulting zombies start coming. And guess what? Even with snow peas to slow them down, we can't defend against them. They're simply too strong for us to stop. Oh, and I forgot about the Ender Coneheads, which thankfully are, you know, really nicely balanced. I mean, this is just outright stupidity here since they can just teleport straight into our house if we are unlucky enough. This level is truly a level of near impossible difficulty with how ridiculous the spawns are. Too many pole vaulters spawn, then oops, I guess you're gonna have to lose half your defense. And if you manage to survive the initial onslaught, then too bad, because more pole vaulters are always coming to take advantage of you losing your plants to then jump into your house. And god, these are just infuriating to deal with because any bit of mistake that happens in front of our lawn can immediately lead to catastrophic consequences. There's no workaround, and we're just dead here. I haven't even mentioned the zombie density this level, which has 2 flags instead of 1. There's nothing better to show than a death montage of the monstrosity of what this level is. This is what true insanity looks like in Plants vs. Zombies. After about 20 consecutive failed attempts, it became clear that if we wanted to beat this, we were going to need way more time to reroll for good RNG to not lose against Ender Coneheads. This is why I'm going to have to employ a strategy known as safe scumming. Instead of having to play through the entire level over and over again when we lose, I'll simply make a checkpoint save on a run where we get lucky for the first half of the level. Then, when we continue playing that save and I happen to lose, I'll just reboot straight from the checkpoint instead of replaying all the early game again, saving us a lot of time and effort. My goal is to get a run where I have a solid line of defense and also all lawnmowers still standing to use for the second half of the level. And by my standards, the first attempt was pretty far off from that. I tried to get a good checkpoint again, but this run was ruined by a pole vaulter jumping from the 7th column to our lawnmower, which frankly, I don't even know how physically this is possible, but it's just a matter of time before we get a near perfect run in the early game where no things go bad for us, and for us, that only took 3 tries to get, and I made a checkpoint here. So now begins the process of repeatedly playing this level, using this checkpoint save until I could beat it. I mean, no big deal here, right? After about 15 more losses from my checkpoint save, I had almost been brought down to my knees. This level might just be the most tedious level ever because of how stupid Ender Coneheads are. There's just nothing I can do to stop them from taking out lawnmowers. What's worse is that since gravestones keep spawning throughout the level, we lose our ability to make pole vaulters jump earlier so they can't reach our lawnmowers. This leaves us with just one way to not lose against pole vaulters: to utilize our shovel to prevent them from jumping over our plants, and then try and kill them with explosives. We will most definitely lose if we don't utilize our explosives on just pole vaulters because of how stupidly impossible it is to deal with this many zombies using just pea shooters. In the ever so rare case of pole vaulters spawning little enough for our pea shooters and snow peas to handle them, it's just a facade because there will always be more coming. But somehow, I still managed to survive using another potato mine because the game didn't send many pole vaulters into the other lanes, and you are witnessing it with me. This attempt, I managed to finally survive the entire onslaught of pole vaulters with still an intact defense before the final wave was to come. I did the only logical thing I could do here, to make yet another checkpoint save so that I can start re-rolling the final wave until I can beat it. But trying to get this to work was a lot tougher than I thought. It would take me about 10 more attempts to beat this level to re-roll for a good enough formation on the final wave. I'm not going to bother you with more fails of this level because I'm sick and tired of it, and it's time to finally beat 1-7 with a last second potato mine before we lost. And that's this level finally over with. Time for 1-8, which thankfully doesn't have pole vaulters anymore. The Chompers unlock this level, and the game finally introduces buckethead zombies, which have more health than anything so far, but they still died at one explosive. Well, if you thought dealing with bucketheads in the early game was going to be easy with potato mines, then you're in for a surprise because they can't do that anymore. And that's because its damage was cut in half from vanilla. Man, the makers of this mod really hate potato mine. Meanwhile, I tried out the new Chomper to kill a buckethead zombie. They no longer devour zombies, but instead just bite them, doing the damage of about 3 Ps every bite. It looks slightly cursed that it doesn't eat any zombies, but these guys output a massive amount of damage, far more than anything we could have used so far. But just putting up chompers behind some walnuts isn't going to deal with everything the game throws at us, because the real twist here is Buckethead Zombie's new variant. This thing now phases through all your plants like they don't even exist and moves about 5 times faster than normal Bucketheads. Good luck dealing with this menace if you don't have a cherry bomb, because this zombie can also walk over minefields as if they don't even exist. We lost another lawnmower to yet another ghost buckethead on the top lane, but thankfully, we were able to get enough chompers to deal with the other ghost bucketheads, and just like that, we beat 1-8. The game won't get easier from here on out, as we reach the second last level of World 1, where the game throws all the zombies introduced so far together. However, this level wasn't as difficult as 1-7 because we're now using chompers to deal with pole vaulters, and they do way more damage than pea shooters. No kidding, just changing our attacker from a pea shooter to a chomper made the level a joke, because pea shooters are just trash when it comes to outputting any bit of decent damage. Pole vaulters didn't even manage to jump a single time throughout the entire level. I guess that's what happens when you triple your damage output. At the end of each world, we need to survive a massive attack from the zombies, and instead of getting to pick our own plants, we have to use what the game gives us from the conveyor belt. This means we are at the mercy of the game to give us more of the good plants rather than the shitty ones like pea shooters. And oh boy, did RNGesus not fail to disappoint me by giving me a bunch of useless pea shooters and only 2 chompers. Eventually, I got lucky enough with both the plants I got and zombies that spawned on my side, and I managed to get past the first part of the level without suffering any lawnmower losses. I also made sure to apply everything I've learned from playing 1-7 in this level, to dig up plants before pole vaulters can smash them, and also saving my explosives for the pole vaulters. The graves once again took over most of the lawn space for the final wave, but thankfully, I had saved enough lawnmowers that this level was over from here on out, and that's the last level of World 1 completed. In World 2, the game switches from day to night, so sun no longer falls on the sky, making sun production much more crucial. On the bright side, we also gain access to the mushroom plants, which are by far the most broken plants in the game. Puff shrooms will defend most zombies at the cost of nothing. And so far, we have relied on using our instant kills to get rid of newspaper zombies because just puff shrooms isn't quite enough against them. Because, well, what's different about the newspaper zombie, you ask? Yeah, newspaper zombies are really bad. Extra health, faster speed, more damage, the whole package. And do I have to remind you that we're using basically only puff shrooms and a few chompers to defend 8 times more zombies? It might as well be impossible to get through this level without instant kills given how strong the zombies are becoming. To beat the level, I had to maximize my sun production as early as possible to push for a strong enough economy to constantly plant more chompers and walnuts. We need quite a lot to deal with even just a single newspaper zombie because of how much stronger they are. A chomper, a walnut, and 1 or 2 puff shrooms is just about enough. Only then can we clutch out 2-1. This is only the first level of World 2, and it already took us more than 1 try to beat, which is a really bad sign for the upcoming levels. From here on out, most levels will take multiple attempts due to the difficulty that is building up from all the different zombies the game throws at us. 2-2 is especially bad because ghost zombies are essentially impossible to defend early on with reduced sun production. Paired with the massive hordes of zombies after the first flag, this level proves to be a tough one to beat as we can't set up nearly as many chompers as we could in daytime. The reason why that happened was actually because we used Sunshroom and not Sunflower. Sunflower instantly gives back 50 sun and generates the same afterwards, making them by far the superior option, as Sunshroom will only give you 25 sun each for a while after it is planted. But at first flag, we already have so much more sun to work with compared to our first run, and also an additional chopper on the lawn. I'm also no longer using Puff Shroom since their ability to defend the early game is much less necessary compared to having Potato Mine to take out newspaper zombies. Even with these optimizations, it was still difficult to beat the level without losing lawnmowers, as newspaper zombies can sneak by when Potato Mine is on cooldown. Ender Coneheads are also still a massive problem given their RNG nature of teleportation, so we lost another lawnmower to that. We had another Ender Conehead teleport almost to our house at the final wave, but thank god we have Potato Mine to take it out, so that's 2-2 done. 2-3 introduces the screen door zombie, and take a look at what they now have.
Oh no.
Safe to say that Fume Shrooms won't be enough to take these guys out anymore because of how much health they have. But Fume Shrooms are still useful since they can attack both their screen door and Buckethead simultaneously, making them still the more cost-efficient attackers. They also gain the ability to see the entire lane, making them laser beams at the cost of 150 sun at night. Some supporting chompers are required to help add extra single target DPS, and this level was easy because it only have 1 flag in it, and we also unlocked the 7th slot at this level. In 2-4, we finally unlock Gravebuster so we can remove the graves that pop up during the level to open up more planting spaces. Its recharge was slashed in half in this mod, so we can more reasonably deal with all the graves that spawn every level. However, not bringing Chomper would come back to bite me because of some pesky pole vaulting Olympic champions. In my next run, I decided to bring back Chomper instead of using Fume Shroom because there was pretty much no chance to kill off pole vaulting zombies otherwise. The annoying part is that screen door zombies are essentially meat shields that are almost as tough as Gargantuars, making Chompers much less dominant compared to during daytime. This meant I still had to continue digging up plants so pole vaulters wouldn't jump into our defense. Getting past this level might as well be up to pure luck. Pole vaulters are just extremely annoying to deal with when you don't have the damage to burst them down yet. And in this run, I must have played this skillfully enough because there were only 2 pole vaulters before the first flag. I love RNG in video games. Unsurprisingly, the zombies got completely shredded up by the amount of chompers we were able to place down because we didn't lose any of them throughout the entire level. Safe to say that chompers are pretty overpowered because of how much single target damage these guys can do. However, the single worst level of the entire mod is up next, which is Whack-A-Zombie. The objective of this level is simply put, to click as fast as possible to whack all the zombies. This level is only about 8 times harder than in the original game because the game now spawns quadruple the zombies and each zombie now also takes 2 hits instead of 1 hit to kill. There's also an extremely stupid additional factor of randomness in this level added in this mod, where your hammer sometimes randomly becomes a shovel to sabotage you from killing the zombies. So it's more like you have to whack a zombie 3 times to make sure the zombie is dead before moving on to the next one. So yeah, we've already lost 3 lawnmowers 40 seconds into this level. The game even gives you time to plant some plants to help out, but it's difficult to even move your cursor to select a plant and go back to where you actually want to plant it fast enough before you lose. On top of all of this, the zombies also get faster over time and spawn faster over time. We're not even halfway through this level and already getting overwhelmed. This level is a pretty good contender for being completely impossible to complete for a human being. Unless I have the capabilities of God, there's no way to get past this level because my clicking speed is mediocre at best. So I'm pretty much forced to use an auto-clicker to beat this level. But just using an auto-clicker won't be an automatic win because we still have to drag our mouse around to target each zombie. It's just a tool that helps me do something I physically cannot do. And well, sometimes using a tool that helps you automatically do something isn't necessarily a great idea because there's still a human component of moving the cursor around. Oh no, I clicked off the screen. Well, whoops. Yep, okay, that is wonderful. Let's see. Since I was using an auto-clicker, moving off the game window caused the auto-clicker to click on the window behind the game at that time, which hit the game window entirely. I had to disable the auto-clicker to even get back into the game, which by the time I could, I had already lost all my lawnmowers. Yeah, not my greatest performance. And embarrassingly, even with an auto-clicker, I couldn't beat the level on this try. It seems that my current auto-clicking speed of 10 clicks per second isn't good enough to get past this level. Since that wasn't fast enough, I had to make sure my auto-clicker would click even faster so I can beat this level. I turned it up to 20 clicks per second. That's 1 click every 50 milliseconds. To put that into perspective, the average blink of an eye lasts 100 milliseconds. In the time span of you blinking, the auto-clicker would have already clicked twice. Safe to say, no human can click as fast as that if they're just doing it normally. But thank God, that 20 clicks per second was finally fast enough for us to get past this level's insane difficulty, allowing us to move on from this monstrosity. Level 26 allows us to unlock the 8th C slot as well as Hypnoshroom, so now we can also bring it in as an additional instant kill. Though Hypnoshroom costs the same as in vanilla, it's actually nerfed here because it doesn't hypnotize the zombie that eats it anymore but instead vaporizes them. I don't know why this mod nerfs it when almost every other plant has received a buff of some sort, not to mention Hypnoshroom was already one of the worst plants in the original game. But I did not mention to you guys that it now recharges 10 seconds faster. Does that make it a good early game plant? Bro, just use Potato Mine. Hypnoshroom aside, the actual main focus of this level is that this is the first level of football zombies, but they only start spawning later on, and Football zombies now have a variant making it like the all-star zombie from PvZ2, dashing at an incredible speed to kill the first plant it hits. It then becomes a regular football zombie from this mod which has more health, moves twice as fast, and also does more damage. And now, Hypnoshroom is finally more useful than Potato Mine because we can kill the football zombie instantly with them. But, the game still has another surprise for us. Another variant of the football zombie is the giant variant, where the football zombie itself has a lot more health. And I think as you saw, the giant football zombie also acted like an all-star zombie because in this mod, there is variant mixing, meaning zombie variants can combine with each other. So, there are actually 4 types of football zombies in total: the regular, the all-star, the giant, and the giant all-star. As I said, giant football zombies have more health, so much more that we couldn't kill them with attacking plants here. It's no big deal for us yet, because lawnmowers, but soon, it will be. 2-6 wasn't too bad, and we got off pretty easy in the final wave with no all-star zombies to be seen, ending the first football zombie level. So well, for 2-7, it's going to be football zombies again, right? Most levels past 2-6 will have changes to the zombie lineup from vanilla, and in this case, completely changed to something else. And to be fair, I'm not quite excited to have to deal with both pole vaulters and newspapers at the same time, because we're forced to essentially use the same stock loadout again. Well, I did change Hypnoshroom for Scaredyshroom to see what Scaredyshroom now does for 100 Sun, and it's literally just the same as in vanilla except it shoots twice as fast. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be using Scaredyshroom ever again after this. But surely, since we're using Snowpeas and Chompers, we should be able to beat this level easily, right? This mod is just relentless at punishing us for any tiny mistake. All it took was digging up my sunflower 0.1 seconds too slow to stop a pole vaulter from jumping, and it was game over. I tried this level again, this time without the Scaredyshroom because it's useless, and it seems like Hypnoshroom is actually the best plant out of everything we can use right now. It's underwhelming, but not as bad as Scaredyshroom is all that matters. Obviously, switching from one bad plant to another bad plant isn't going to make the difference here, so I still have to be very cautious of pole vaulters and sacrifice lawnmowers accordingly. And well, compared to 1-7, this was just a walk in the park, and I was able to complete the new level 2-7 very quickly. Level 2-8 is also changed in this mod, which now has backup dancers in the zombie lineup. Usually, backup dancers can't naturally spawn in the original game, and I found out it's also the case here, so I found it strange how it appeared in the zombie lineup. Anyways, Ice Shroom. It costs 100 sun instead of 75 but retains its function from vanilla. That will definitely be replacing Hypno Shroom in our loadout. And without Hypno Shroom to instantly kill Buckethead zombies, it's a pretty good time to showcase that Buckethead zombies actually move faster after losing its Buckethead. That ability doesn't matter much considering the zombie will usually die very soon after losing its Buckethead. I'm just going to skip the boring stuff, it's just Bucketheads and whatnot. So let's see what the new dancing zombies do in this mod. If you thought pole vaulters were ridiculous, I introduce to you Michael Jackson, who can now stomp all your plants in one go, and backup dancers that shoot Zombottany Peas. The best solution for now will have to be to stop them with a cherry bomb before they end up wiping out half our defense again. We can also stop Michael Jackson from reaching our plants by using an ice shroom to stop them from dancing all the way. And well, if we don't have either ice shroom or cherry bomb, then I guess we're gonna have to lose half our defense again. Now, this was just the introductory level to dancing zombies, so there's more to come, especially next level, but we've just unlocked the best plant in the game. The next level is also modified, and instead, now has every single zombie that was introduced in World 2. This creates a great opportunity for us to test out how effective Doom Shroom is in this mod. We know that in the original game, it was good enough alone to be used as your main source of damage to kill everything. And in this mod, Doom Shroom is buffed from the original game, as it still costs the same, and now no longer leaves a crater upon usage. How did they always end up buffing the best plant in the game, and then nerfing something like Hypno Shroom? Well, there's no stopping me from just spamming it to kill all the zombies in this mod, right? Actually, yes, there is. Since football zombies have their health increased in this mod, they barely survive an instant kill and therefore make our Doom Shrooms less effective. Still though, this doesn't stop us from abusing the best plant in the game and using it to kill everything outright. Well, you think at this point, we might as well be invincible, but that's not quite the case. The one problem we do have to deal with is the giant football zombie, which actually doesn't die to Hypno Shroom. The problem is actually because Hypno Shroom's ability isn't an unconditional instant kill against any zombie. Its ability is limited to only zombies with less than 3,000 health that eat it, and since the giant football zombie has more health than that, Hypno Shroom doesn't kill it. With this shocking revelation, we quickly got overwhelmed by the giant football zombies that steamrolled our defense as I couldn't stop them using Hypno Shrooms. So, I decided to bring Chomper instead of Hypno Shroom, seeing as it's as useful as a pile of garbage. Chompers clean up all the threatening zombies that walk up to the front, and Doom Shroom will take care of the hordes of zombies that lag behind them like the screen door zombies. Isn't it glorious that Doom Shroom now just one-shots the entire wave, and we no longer even have to worry about having to micromanage most of my plants? If it wasn't obvious enough, we managed to beat the level pretty easily on this attempt. The next level is 210, which is the last level of World 2. Just like the first world, the 10th level of this world is a conveyor belt level with all the plants unlocked in this world. The major issue this time is that we have to deal with the hyper buffed newspaper zombies with these plants. It ain't pretty, but it's almost impossible for us to counter newspaper zombies unless we spend instant kills on them, because there are no walnuts we can use to block them off. Not to mention that fume shrooms are pretty awful here, because football zombies and screen door zombies have way too high health for them to do any meaningful damage. The dancing zombies can also charge straight out of our plants before we can kill them with how bad the attacking plants are. The only plant that ends up being even usable ends up being Doom Shroom, and not going to lie, it's pretty hard to get a Doom Shroom for every wave of zombies that come. Not only this, but giant football zombies are nigh impossible to kill because they have so much health, it's practically impossible to whittle down when we don't have Chomper. Like at this moment, I really wish the game would have given us at least one more Doom Shroom, but nah, we gotta have Gravebusters instead. What a fun level! This level is just straight up stupid, because most of their plans other than Doom Shroom are just garbage. What on earth were they thinking adding a zombie with more than the health of a Gargantuar to this level? And you can't even forget the part that newspaper zombies require reaction speed at the speed of light to counter with Hypno Shroom because it moves so fast. There's simply no way I can do anything against this amount of zombies if I'm not getting a Doom Shroom every wave. And with giant football zombies to contend with, we're going to need even more than just a Doom Shroom every wave to not lose. It's pretty ridiculous. Let's not even forget that because all our attackers do as much damage as a pea, and their conets will have a significantly higher chance of teleporting deep into our defense. This sometimes even forces us to use Doom Shroom on just this one zombie to not lose the game. And other times, you could just lose the game when it teleports past the lawnmower straight into our house. I sure do love RNGs for this one. Like, you'd also expect that Ice Room would freeze longer than just a few seconds so you can at least have some time to get another Doomshroom from the conveyor belt. Just nope. Nope. The only way you can beat this level is out of sheer luck. The whole level is basically just a game of waiting until enough Doomshrooms and Ice Shrooms show up on the conveyor belt. And because in this run, I had an Ice Shroom or Doomshroom at practically all times, I was able to not get completely overrun by the zombies past the first flag. And I say that as if losing 4 lawnmowers didn't put us in an extremely dangerous position to lose the game at any moment to an all-star zombie. But thank God for RNGesus because the game literally showered instant use plants on us, so we were able to survive with a defense that looked like we just started the level a minute ago. That's the story of how I managed to beat the first 20 levels of what truly may be the hardest mod in Plants vs Zombies history. Total Death Edition did not lie when it said it was difficult, because this mod was most certainly harder than any other mod I've played before it. Subscribe for part 2 which will be released soon, and thank you to channel members for supporting the RCCH channel.